Okay, I'm going to talk to you about indirect object pronouns. And first, in order to be able to use the indirect object pronoun, we have to identify the indirect object. An indirect object indicates to whom or for whom an action is carried out. In Spanish, it's also used to indicate from whom something is borrowed or taken away. Okay, in each of these sentences, you're going to have three nouns. Oops. Okay, one is going to be your subject, one is going to be your direct object, and one is going to be your indirect object. Okay, and so we need to identify all of these. For me, it's easiest, I think, to identify all of these parts of speech in order rather than just the one. And if you look over here, the subject is who's completing the action or who is writing the letter in the first sentence. The direct object directly receives the action of the verb. It's what's being written, eaten, sent, given. And in fact, I just realized this is left out the verb. Okay. And the indirect object indirectly receives the action of the verb. It's what's being written. It answers the questions to whom, for whom, or for what. Okay. So, and then the verb is the action. It's what's being done. Since all of these other parts of speech, the subject, the direct object, and the indirect object, they're defined based upon the relationship to the verb. I think it's easiest to start with identifying your verb. So in the first sentence, I wrote a letter to my brother. This is your verb, wrote. Next, I think it's easiest to find the subject. Who did the writing? Who wrote this letter? That would be I. I wrote it. What was written? That's your direct object, a letter. And to whom was this letter written, or for whom was it written? It was written for my brother. And the next one, I'm sending a package to my son. The verb is am sending. Okay. Who's the subject? Who's doing the sending? I am. What's being sent? A package. That's your direct object. And to whom is that package being sent? My son. That's my indirect object. Okay. And in the last one, I will give my wife flowers for her birthday. The verb is will give. Who's going to be doing the giving? That's your subject. That's I. What's going to be given are the flowers. And to whom are these flowers going to be given? My wife. That's the indirect object. Okay. Well, what we want to do now is, let's say we don't, when we're speaking and all of these, would use our subject, our direct object, and our indirect object. But if we continue to talk about these same topics, we might want to start using pronouns for some of these things so that we don't have to keep repeating ourselves. So we want to learn now how to change our indirect objects to pronouns. So these over here are your indirect object pronouns. Me means to me, te, you, or to you. Le is to you. Le is to him or her. Nos is to us. Os is to you. Lace is to you, and lace is also to them. Okay, so if I look at my first sentence, this down here so I have some room. I wrote a letter to my brother. If I write that out in Spanish, it's going to be oops, I don't want to do it in purple. Yo escribí una carta a mi hermano. Okay, so we've already decided that my brother, mi hermano, is my indirect object. So I want to get rid of that. I want to get rid of a mi hermano, and I want to use its pronoun instead. I want to change my sentence from saying I wrote a letter to my brother and make it I wrote a letter to him. Okay, so hermano would get replaced with him. Him is le. Okay. So, so where do these indirect objects go? Indirect object pronouns usually precede the conjugated verb, meaning they go in front of it. So let's say I rewrite this sentence again. Yo escribí una carta a mi hermano. Well, we already said we want to get rid of a mi hermano. We want to replace it with le, okay? But we can't put it at the end like we would in English. We're supposed to put it in front of the conjugated verb. Well, we've already identified our verb as being escribí, so we want to take that le and go stick it in front of escribí. Yo le escribí una carta, and that's saying I wrote him a letter. So let's do it again with this one. I'm sending a package to my son. If I write this out in Spanish, it's going to be Yo estoy mandando un paquete a mi hijo. Okay. I'm sending a package to my son. Well, I want to change it so that I can practice using my pronouns. I want to change it from I'm sending a package to my son to I am sending a package to him. So I would get rid of a mi hijo and change it to le, because le is him. Okay, and again, if I wrote it out, I would say yo estoy mandando un paquete a mi hijo. Well, what I want to get rid of is a mi hijo. I want to change it to le. But le doesn't go there. Indirect object pronouns precede the conjugated verb. Well, here we've got two verbs. We've got am and sending. Whenever you have a helping verb, you're gonna take you're gonna put your indirect object pronoun in front of the helping verb, not the participle. It's gonna be in front of the conjugated verb, because out of these two verbs, one, mandando, has been turned into a participle. Estoy is the only one that's a conjugated verb. So I'd say, yo le estoy mandando un paquete. Okay. Okay. Another place that you can put the indirect object pronoun is actually attached to a participle. So you can write, yo le estoy mandando un paquete, or if you prefer, you could rewrite this as yo estoy mandando un paquete a mi hijo. We know we're getting rid of a mi hijo, we're making it le. You can stick it in front of your conjugated verb, your helping verb, estoy, or, and I didn't spell this right, you can attach it to mandando. So it can actually go attached here. Okay, yo estoy mandándole un paquete. So you could do either way. It can either go in front or it can go attached, however you feel more comfortable. All right, let's do the last one. I will give my wife flowers for her birthday. So I would say, yo voy a dar flores a mi esposa para su cumpleaños. Okay. So that's how I would say I will give my wife flowers for her birthday. Well, if we want to replace this and use the pronoun for the indirect object is my wife. Okay, and we're still going to use le because there is no gender distinction. Let me go get that. Okay, there is no gender distinction. Indirect objects agree only in number. agree only in number with the noun to which they refer. There is no gender agreement. Okay, so for mi esposa, I'm still gonna use le. There's no difference. Okay, so if I want to rewrite out my sentence, yo voy a dar flores a mi esposa para su cumpleaños. Okay, what I'm getting rid of is mi esposa. I'm replacing it with le, and where's it supposed to go? It goes either attached to an infinitive, I don't have an infinitive here, or it's going to go in front of a conjugated verb. My conjugated verb is boy, so I'm going to take my le and stick it here. Yo le voy a dar flores para su cumpleaños. However, because this sentence has an infinitive, in constructions with an infinitive, the indirect object pronouns may either precede the conjugated verb, like what we did, or they can be attached to the infinitive. So if I rewrite out that sentence, yo voy a dar flores a mi esposa para su cumpleaños. I know that I'm going to get rid of mi esposa. I'm going to make it, mi esposa becomes le. And so it could either go in front of boy or it can go attached to the infinitive, which is dar. So voy a darles flores. Yo voy a darles flores para su cumpleaños. So you can do it either way. Okay. A couple of other things. If it's a negative sentence, the indirect object pronoun is going to go between the no and the conjugated verb. So no les recomiendo ese restaurante. You want to keep your les next to your verb. The no doesn't need to separate them. Another thing, le and les have different meanings. So to make sure that whomever you're speaking with or whoever you're writing something for understands what you're trying to say, you can add the prepositional phrase a él, a ella, usted, a ellos, a ellas, or a ustedes. So le preparamos la comida could be interpreted as we prepare him the meal, we prepare her the meal, we prepare you the meal. So to make it more clear, you might add an a ella at the end, and then it would be understood that you're preparing her the dinner. Les traigo un refresco, I bring them or you a drink. To make it more clear, you might say les traigo un refresco a ustedes, which means I bring you a drink. You can also use the prepositional phrase for emphasis. Just remember that you can't say a yo or a tú after the preposition. Tú and yo become me and ti. So you'd have a él, a ella, a usted, a ellos, a ellas, a ustedes, a nosotros, but you'd have a mí and you'd have a ti. So te invito un café a ti, no a ellos. I'm inviting you to a café, not them. You don't have to have the a ti there. It just re-emphasizes who the indirect object of your sentence is. Mi novio me preparó una cena deliciosa a mí. So you would put a mí.